Hello, welcome to another video. So the project ZZR is coming along leaps and bounds. I'm really happy so far. It's given the bike a really good clean now, and what's left on the bike has been cleaned as best as I possibly can so that I can now fit bits back on the bike, which is always a stage I really love now because I'm kind of at the bit where I've seen it for its worst and now I'm kind of bringing it back now and starting to fit things in. So the whole bike has been thoroughly degreased. I've checked all the bearings that I've not removed, so things like the headstock, that's all absolutely fine. Same with the swinging arm. Now I haven't removed the swinging arm purely because it pivots on the ABBA stand, which is a bit annoying. So I could remove the swinging arm if I rebuilt the front and put the side stand on so the back is kind of free and in the air, then I would be able to take off the swinging arm. But I've checked the bearings, all seems in order. I'm more than happy with it actually, and it's cleaned up, I think, well enough. So let's have a little look around. So like I said, quite a major cleanup operation. Now the paint is not perfect on the frame. Oh, smudge mark from my fingers, I have to clean that up. But it's certainly good enough. All of this gets covered in plastic, and like the mud guard and all this sort of thing sits in here. The swinging arm itself is not too bad. There's a couple of marks here and there, but none of it really gets seen. There's a couple of scratches here and there, but I'm not happy to, or not wishing to, should I say, paint the whole thing. Underneath is looking a lot cleaner, so it's kind of ready, and I'm happy we're kind of at the stage. Now it doesn't just stop with the bike, it's also the parts that you fit onto the bike. So in the last video, obviously, I went through the wiring loom in quite extensively, and in the meantime, I've also been working on other parts. So this is now the suspension strut. Now it was rotten, well, not rotten, that's incorrect. It was very rusty. It was only surface, so I was able to completely clean up the inner part of the strut by removing the spring, repainted the spring, and I have lacquered the bare metal so that it will prevent it, hopefully, from rusting in the future. It's going to get grimy, going to get dirty, they always do, and they're not very easy to get to on the ZZR, but at least I know that this one can go back in and it's absolutely fine and it's working, so I'm really happy with that, and it doesn't look too shabby. In addition to that, there's also the sort of trailing links and the other parts of the suspension which have been completely stripped. I've cleaned up all the needle bearings inside, checked them for wear, and I've re-greased absolutely everything. Checked all these grease nipples that work, and they're absolutely fine. Everything's been re-greased, and that's all ready to be reinstalled. So yeah, fair bit of work carried out so far. So I think what we'll do now is we'll look about getting the suspension back on the back and getting that wiring loom installed. So we'll go up a little bit more on the ABBA stand just to make it a little bit easier. Go to the maximum height, which is about there. And there's a pin which you lock it off, which is quite neat. And then you release the pressure on the hydraulic ram. That's it. So we've got it at this height so that I'm not needing to bend down as I reinstall. So first thing we'll do is put the shock in. Just loosely put the nut on for now, so I don't need to go too crazy, because everything will be tightened and torqued anyway. Just want to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. I always tend to put a little bit of copper grease on. Now I don't do it on any parts that get hot or heat up, but I do like to grease things up, just so that should they ever need to be taken off in the future, it's not going to cause too much grief. So I'll quickly get all these greased up, and then we'll see about getting it installed. I think it goes, get something like this actually this way. Never quite work out which way this has to go. So the very last bolt is for the actual swinging arm itself, which I've temporarily cable tied. Up in the way, up out of the way. So I'm super happy with the way that's gone. It looks, I think, really cool. You know, it's never going to be a show bike this, but it is going to be very, very nice. And now that's all been cleaned and greased and lubricated and all set up, it's all really, really nice. I haven't torqued anything up just yet, so that'll be done shortly. Once that's all done, we get to putting that wiring loom back in, which kind of is fantastic, because then we can start to introduce carburetors and actually, you know, get the bike actually fired up, which will be fabulous. Obviously we're a little way away from that just yet, but yeah, it's progress, it's a step forward, and I couldn't be happier. During the week I've managed to get a bit more done to the bike, which has been fabulous. Now I've cleaned some more bits up. I've managed to reinstall the wiring loom, which was a bit of a challenge because I had to remember where it all went, so it all kind of weaves in and out between these pieces of plastic, between the frame. But the good thing about a wiring loom is it kind of remembers the shape it was when it was installed, so there's certain bends within the loom itself which kind of allow you to sort of lay it in position. Then it becomes quite obvious actually where everything goes, and it's not as daunting as it first feels. As for the plastics, they've all been cleaned up and installed, because I wanted to make sure that you know, I'm starting to build the bike back up now, and I wanted to make sure everything was correct and back in. But I'm really pleased with how it looks. It all looks, you know, for a 32-year-old bike, it looks amazing. So with all the wiring back in place, what else have I done? The fuel pump. Now the previous owner that had tried to get the bike working or tried to get the bike sorted didn't spend a huge amount of time on it, and I'm assuming that he purchased a fuel pump, and the fuel pump itself was fine, but it was an aftermarket, and I wanted to get the bike back to original as much as I possibly could. So I have sourced a good working used fuel pump, which I have tested, cleaned all the tray up, cleaned all the pipe work up, new clips and a new filter, which you know, these are all things you're not going to see, but I know they've been done, and that's what pleases me a little bit. So at the front I've not done too much, not had to do too much, but I have taken the radiator protectors off and given those a quick spray paint and attached them back on. Nothing too drastic. Now one of the biggest criticisms of these 90s bikes is actually the brakes, and part of the problem is actually the fact that the original brake lines expand under braking because they're not rigid enough or strong enough to be able to cope with what you're trying to do. So, you know, the fact that, how I understand it, the fluid gets compressed, which compresses the fluid through the system, which then allows the pistons to go out. But the weakest point is going to be the brake lines, and they will expand as you try and brake, which reduces your braking efficiency. So to get around that, you have to fit, or you recommended to fit, braided lines, and I was able to get a set of Hell lines, H-E-L. So I've got a braided line that goes from the master cylinder down to this T-piece. Now what I could have gone for twin straight lines straight from the master cylinder straight to the calipers. So I appreciate that you know, I'm compromising a little bit with the T-piece, but it's factory, it's spec, and then some pretty decent looking brake lines to go down to the calipers. Now this is a used good set that I took a bit of a gamble on, but actually it's panned out really well and they look really smart, and I'm really quite pleased with those. Other bits that I've taken off and cleaned, these little hangers for the footrests, and they look absolutely immaculate. Things have just cleaned up so well. I did spend a little bit of time sorting the bolts out and making those nice, and just stripping everything and greasing and cleaning. You know, as I say, it's never going to be a show bike, but it's going to be very nice. And the same for the gear shifter. I am going to probably be replacing, which is why I haven't hung yet, the actual foot peg, because I'll probably replace those with some new ones if I can source them. and the same for the other side. So the rear, they don't have any rubbering on them, so actually they're okay as they are, but once again, looks really quite nice, so I'm very pleased. So really the next job is going to be to get the switchgear back installed, carburetors back installed, and then the new throttle cables that I've purchased. Not new, once again, used, a good used set. You can get a lot of aftermarket kits. I'm not a fan, if I'm honest. I'd rather have the original, so I have procured those. The little EGR system is ready to go back in. I've cleaned all that up. I think it's an EGR system or a recirculation system of some kind. There's just, for the moment, just to keep any dirt out, a little pipe in there just to keep these two connected, if anyone wonders why that's missing. But yeah, otherwise bracketry all cleaned up, so yeah, she's looking really good. Now I have managed to secure myself or purchase a set of new tyres, and they were, as always with tyres, they're not the cheapest things to buy. Tyres themselves that were on the wheels are actually quite good, but they are old, and because they're old I just don't trust them, so I would much rather purchase some brand new tyres. So let's take a quick look at what we've got. So, from memory, I ordered Pirellis, so they should be okay. Normally I go for Pilot Road 5s and that sort, but they are so expensive, and I am trying to keep the cost down a little bit on what I'm doing. So give me a second just to get this unwrapped, and then we'll have a little look. So if anyone's watched the channel long enough, you'll know that I love new items, things getting delivered. So I've gone for a set of Pirellis. Now they're 160 60 R17s at the rear, and fronts should be 120 70 R17s for the front. So yeah, brand new set of rubber. How lovely is that? Now unexpectedly, also, this came with it. Now I've absolutely no idea what it is, but we'll have a look. So it was just sitting in the tyre. Oh, how cool is that? Little puncture repair kit. That is amazing. I'm guessing these are inflators. How cool is that? Awesome. Oh, I love unexpected gifts too, so that's amazing. So thank you very, very much. And this came from M&P, I think it was. I ordered these from, so M&P parts. So big shout out to those. So amazing. New tyres, new rubber. It's going to look amazing, and I get the wheels all cleaned up. Now I have also ordered a tyre fitting machine. So that's going to arrive probably in the next couple of weeks, and I'll hope to do a video on that. But for now, the old tyres are good enough at least to get the bike on the wheels and give it a bit of a quick shakedown. But yeah, fitting the new tyres is going to be amazing. So hopefully I'll get a video out on that when the machine arrives. I'll do a little bit of an unboxing, set up the machine and get some tyres changed, which is fabulous. Now, yes, it's a bit of a cost to get a tyre machine, and they're not ridiculously expensive. I think I paid about £137, I think it was, because there's a massive discount on at the moment, and that comes with the balancer as well. Now I figure that if I'm going to be doing a few bikes, all the better to have the equipment so I can actually do the tyres myself, balance them all up and get them done as and when I need and want to get them done, which is going to be fabulous. It means I'm going to eventually, it will pay for itself. It may take a few tyre changes to recoup that cost, but you know, I'd rather do it myself, learn a new skill, than somebody else take my money. So yeah, that'll be good. Getting tyres fitted, and also my friend Sean as well may be able to do a few of his too, which would be very useful. So I think what we'll do now is we're going to have a little look at getting those carburetors installed, because that's, for me, a big step, because then we're very close actually to be able to start the bike up again. Well, we'll need the exhaust, of course. So installing the carbs back in the bike is a really, really big step for me. I'm really pleased to get to this point. It's worth, though, double checking the manual, or in this case the Haynes manual, just to make sure that you've got everything right here before you install the carbs, because once the carbs go into this aperture, it then becomes a lot more difficult to get to things that you might have missed. So do spend a little bit of extra time just double checking and making sure before you commit your carbs that you're kind of ready is what I'm saying, because otherwise you're going to have to take the carbs off again, which is a bit of a faff. Yeah, certainly when you've got all the cables all connected. So I'm going to spend a moment just to quickly double check, and then we'll get these carbs installed. So having checked as much as I can, I'm more than happy to go ahead now. I might have overlooked something, but I'll just have to deal with that later. So just going to take off these rings, remove my temporary covers. It reminds me, actually, I need to order some new vacuum caps, because I had to sort of make do with these temporarily. They're not ideal. I'm just going to spend just a moment just to double check these boots. I haven't disturbed them, I haven't taken them off, because they all look to be in quite good condition, to be fair. But I just want to have a quick inspection of them just to make sure that there's nothing glaringly obvious. So they all appear to be good. There doesn't appear to be any cracks in them that I can obviously tell. I'm hoping I can use my smoke machine to verify any vac leaks if there are any, but I'm going to take a moment just to clean up these seats where the actual carbs slot into, to make sure they're as clean as possible, and then when I clamp everything up it stands the best possible chance of being vacuum free, because I think I mentioned it earlier on in another video, is chasing vacuum problems on these particular bikes is quite a big thing, and it can actually affect the running if you don't get these sort of things seated and buttoned up correctly. Yeah, so you can see the dirt that's come off of that, so well worth doing in my opinion. So just a quick inspection of the clamps just to make sure they're all in order. We've got no rounded screws, which is actually quite nice, because often people go at these at a funny angle and they invariably end up rounding things off, which is not essentially what you want. So they go a specific way. So you've got like a little lug here that connects with a lug point on the actual rubber boots. And it's really important when you fit them that you make sure that you have it in such a way that you can actually get your screwdriver in. So you can actually have them round the other way, and then of course your screwdriver's trying to come in through the frame, which is once again no good. Not seen this since I've rebuilt it, so I'm really looking forward to having another look. Oh, look at that. They look beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful, that is. Love it. And I'm just going to very quickly offer it up. Make sure I've got a rough idle set. We'll see how we fit. Yeah, it's not too bad, is it? Excuse me. Been suffering a bit of hay fever lately, so if I sound a little bit snuffly, that'll be why. So we've got the, I don't know if you can see, I think we'll bring you in. So this particular bike's got a liquid, or the coolant itself runs through the carburetors. So I've got a pipe here, and somewhere, I've just lost it, there it is, pipe just there, and they need to connect, should I say, to each end of this rail. Okay, so it's just a simple undo my temporary bolt, pop those on, clamp them up, and that needs to be done really before you attach the carburetors, otherwise it's going to be an absolute nightmare to try and get those installed. So I'll very quickly do that now. Cool, bit of faff that one. What we got there in the end. Yeah, that's good enough. Cool, so that's with those connected. And once again, double check your routing, make sure everything's routing how you want it. So it all looks pretty good to me. If you don't get your routing right, then you end up having to redo everything at a later date. Just to make life easier, I'm going to connect now the fuel line as well. So fuel line I'm going to plug straight in and get that connected up. Just makes it a bit easier to do it now than try and fight it later on. Good progress. Now I half expect these to be quite tight, and I want them to be tight because I want them to have a good seal. So you know when they're pushing home, because they'll kind of click into place. They'll kind of click just like that, and it's quite a positive sound. So more than happy now that they're all where they ought to be, and it will just now be a matter of tightening up the bolts. Now when I took these off, they were really loose, so I dare say that wasn't helping with the running of the bike, because it's going to let in extra air, which you do not want. That is the last thing you want when you're trying to get a bike to run well, is extra air where you don't want it. So make sure you do tighten these up well. Excellent. Well, they're nice and tight. So we have got our fuel supply hooked up. Carburetors are now installed. That goes to the airbox. And then we've now got the throttle cables to put in. So switch gear next onto here, and the throttle cable and the choke cable all run through this hole here. So cool, looking good. This is the little recirculation valve, I think that's what it is, which sits just here. So that's cleaned up quite nicely as well. Now I do know a lot of people do blank all these off, and to be honest, I have no idea what's involved in doing that. So for now, I'm just going to reinstall this as it should be, connect up all the vac lines to it, believe that connects up to the airbox, and then we'll just run the bike with it all installed. I mean, I've got a very similar system on my 1100 and I have no issues with it whatsoever, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm not going to bother or get involved in worrying about what it is, how it works, until I suspect it's faulty. So for now, I'll just reinstall it, which I've just done. So the switch gear for the 600 is very similar to the 1100, it's probably identical actually. Now I have noticed though, looking here, that we've got another repair at some point, and I do not leave things like this. So I am going to cut this cable tie off, and I'm going to investigate this and set about making hopefully what would be a better repair than you see here. Probably nothing wrong with it, and it probably works just fine, but I'm not overly happy with that. So we'll have a little look. In fact, I suspect, looking again, what's happened is this wire here looks to me like it's been added on, because it's kind of running externally, which tells me there's a break in the wire, the original wire. In fact, there is the original wire there. So I'm going to just do a little bit of digging, because it would be nice to have this look a bit original. I don't want sort of cable ties sticking on things. So I'm going to have a little play with this, and I'll come back in a moment. I'll let you know exactly what I found. After a fair amount of messing around, I've been able to, I think, effect a relatively good repair. It's not the the greatest standard that I would have liked, but it's certainly good enough. So the wire itself internally between this plug and this end was actually completely knackered, and I was able to pull that wire out, continuity check it, and it was toast. There was the tiniest amount of wire still showing for that pin, and I was just able to put one of my crimps, and I added a little bit of solder on it as well just to make sure that was good. I managed to get a slightly thicker grade of wire, which I was able to somehow, I don't know how, force it all the way down this loom and poke out the other end, where I then doubled it back and reconnected the original plug back on, so that when it all goes back together, like something like this, a bit fiddly actually, that cable tie is getting in the way of it. But yeah, when it all goes back together, essentially the only bit you're going to see are these two wires hanging down, which will plug straight into the brake switch. So this is quite a critical part, so I wanted to effect a good repair, which I'm satisfied with. I'm just going to have to push that cable tie down a little bit so that I am able to have this sit correctly, like so. So all in all, a good repair, and the wiring loom now looks original. No more cable ties and no wires showing. I'm going to run a little bit of insulation around these ends just to tidy those up a little bit and to help support that crimp. But I've continuity checked it back from that end to that end on both cables, and they're fine. So I'm more than happy with that. Ready to install just about. And there we have it, all buttoned up now. A bit of insulation around that just to support that crimp, and we're now ready to install the cables. Yay! The last thing that I want to do in this video is fit the throttle cables and the throttle sort of switch gear. Now, I don't know why it is, but I always struggle with throttle cables. Now, it would be all too easy if there were a single cable. This is what you call a push-pull cable. So there's two, and I'm almost certainly going to get them round the wrong way. So I'll fit them initially, go to fit the other end up near the handlebar, and work out that I've put it in reverse. So, which then means to take off again from the handlebar, deattach from the carburetor, round the other way, so the other cable goes in the other place, and so on and so forth. Now it is a bit of a faff. What I've done in the past, once I've established which way they go, is I actually mark which cable sits over which. So when they sit in here, they kind of sit, I don't know if you can see here on the camera, I hope you can, they kind of sit one above the other, and I will mark typically one of the cables so that if ever in the future I have to uninstall them, I know which one goes in here first, and then once I know I've got the bottom right on the carburetor, then if I have to reverse, well, you can't reverse the top at that point because you'll only ever fit one way, because the tops that fit onto the actual accelerator part, or the throttle here, will only go in one way inside the switch gear. I hope that all makes sense. So I think what we'll do is we'll have a go at fitting it. I think this one will go on the top here, which would tell me that this is a pull, but it all depends on which way the butterfly orientates, and everything's in reverse as well because it's upside down. So I think we'll have a go, see how we get on, and if I have to reverse it, then so be it. Kind of part of the course. I'm hoping it's going to be very similar to my ZZR11, and it shouldn't be too much of a faff. But the first thing I will definitely need to do before I get any older is remove this section here to allow me to actually hook the bottom part of the cable on to the carburetors themselves. So I'll very quickly do that, and then we'll have a go at actually fitting them. So it's a whole series of 8mm bolts. So you might also be wondering why I've actually fitted these when I rebuilt the carbs. Well, mainly because I wanted to keep everything together and not lose anything, and not lose and not lose the gaskets, which you know, my shed is absolutely full to brimming, and I'm very capable of losing things. So I find it's often best just to rebuild things, especially if they're going to go into storage for a little while whilst you're sorting out everything else. So with those off, it is a simple matter of working out what you think. First of all, working out which way the carbs will turn, and in this case they're kind of turning from where I'm sitting in a clockwise position, so I can determine, and I will just try and get you a little closer to show this because I think it's important. So I don't know if you can see, but when I rotate the carbs, you can actually see where they hook on. So you can determine quite easily which is a pull cable, and bear in mind that's going to pull, so you can kind of work out the orientation just by process of elimination. But me being me, I've often found I get it wrong, and I spend half my life undoing and redoing all my work. So we're going to insert that in through there, hook the cable on, and then locate. So we will now rotate the second cable through. So a good set of sort of ratchetable or lockable forceps are really quite useful, because then you can hook onto the cable at just the right angle to enable you to actually connect it where it needs to go. There's no real procedure for this, it's just trial and error and having a go. So that is now both ends connected to the carburetor, so that's good. Now it's just a case of hooking these up and working exactly where they need to go, and I do believe they go through this eyelet as well. So the very last part of this process is to work all this out and exactly how the cables feed in. So, because that will ultimately determine whether I've got everything around the right way. And the lower cable goes in first. So the lower cable, if you can see that, the lower cable sits in. Now that I'm saying is the lower push cable. So that would need to be at the top. Maybe not the bottom. This is the difficult bit, working this out and deciding. Oh, this is an absolute ball ache of a job. So I'm gonna sort this out and I'm gonna get back to you, because I'm gonna start saying some swear words in a minute. I've got to figure this out and then I'll explain how it's done, because wow, this is an absolute pain. So I will not lie to you, that was an absolute faff and a half. However, we have success. So the cables themselves have been connected this end, this has all been rebuilt and connected, and we've got a nice working throttle. And what you want it to do is when it returns without any effort at all, with a nice snap. So you know when you close that throttle, it's going to close off itself automatically. So we're really cracking on now. So I think today that's all we're going to do. I couldn't be happier with the progress we've made so far, so it's really good. I feel like I'm really turning the corner with the bike. In the next video we're going to be concentrating on the front end, the back end, getting all that buttoned up, getting the brakes all done, getting the forks on. Hopefully going to get the exhaust fitted and the bike started, which will be amazing. Still got to fit the coils, mustn't forget those, because it won't start without them. And that will give me an indication once the bike is running exactly how these carburetors are going to perform. Hopefully pretty good. That's my hope anyway. So thanks for watching, I really do appreciate it. If you're enjoying the series, give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content like this, then consider subscribing. I really do appreciate it. Either way, I can't wait to see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.